This intro to Tommy Emmanuel's rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow has been with me for nearly a decade now, and almost any time I pick up a guitar, I have an overwhelming impulse to play it. Its clever mix of harmonics and lightly plucked fundamentals is a sound that's delicate, complicated, and in my opinion, woefully underrated. Hi, my name is Aaron Keene, and in today's music lesson, we're going to learn about one of my favorite guitar techniques, the harmonic cascade. Also known as Harp Harmonics, the most well-known practitioners of the Cascade known to me are Lenny Breau, Chet Atkins, Greene, and Tommy Emmanuel. To call them pioneers of the solo guitar world is almost an understatement, and when I was a teenager first learning how to play, much of what they did seemed untouchably difficult, and few things more so than this technique. On Chet Atkins' 1970 album Pickin' My Way, Chet does his rendition of When You Wish Upon a Star from Disney's Pinocchio. He opens with this classic version of the Cascade over an A minor 11 shape. In the earlier Tommy Emmanuel example, he starts with descending artificial harmonics before employing the Cascade over an F sharp minor 9 chord, rapidly changing direction between ascending and descending. Here, Lenny Breau's opening to the American songbook standard Lullaby of Birdland uses this ascending E-flat Lydian sound. You'll notice that in all three examples, it's being used as a kind of cadential intro to the song, a way to set a mood that invites a closer listen. It's certainly flashy, don't get me wrong, but for as difficult a technique as it is, it rarely, if ever, feels out of place. So, first things first. What's a harmonic? When a note is plucked, you have many other higher frequencies that ring out above the note you most easily perceive. That more easily perceived note is called the fundamental, and the higher frequencies above would be the overtones. There's an order to these higher frequencies known as the overtone series, but for our purposes today, we will primarily be focusing on the first overtone that appears. That first overtone is an octave above the fundamental, or an exact doubling of the frequency. To clarify, both the fundamental pitch and the overtones are harmonics. In fact, the fundamental pitch is the first harmonic and the first overtone is the second harmonic. It's a little bit confusing, but when I talk about playing harmonics as a guitar player, I'm almost always referring to bringing out one of the overtones, like the second harmonic or higher, out of the fundamental. The easiest way to approach this on guitar is to go to the 12th fret of the thickest string and with your left hand, very lightly touch the metal fret. While lightly touching the metal fret with the left hand, pluck the string with the right hand. Compare that by just playing the string open without touching anything in the left hand. The open string and the 12th fret harmonic are the same note but one octave apart. You can also do this on the 7th fret for a note that's a fifth above, or on a 5th fret that's 2 octaves above. There are many more harmonics than that, but for now, we'll just stick with the 12th fret. Now, chances are, if you're watching this to better understand how to do something as advanced as a Cascade harmonic, well, you probably already know how to make a harmonic on the 12th fret. However, to execute the Cascade harmonic, or Harp harmonics, let's start by doing the same thing, only using one hand instead of two. Step 1, the one-handed harmonic. To create a harmonic using only one hand, your picking hand specifically, you take your index finger in the right hand and lightly touch the 12th fret. Notice how my index finger is somewhat straightened out. It keeps my fingernail from interfering and, more importantly, gives plenty of room for my thumb to strike the string behind it. This will be somewhat awkward at first, coordinating a relaxed but slightly straightened out index finger that only lightly touches the 12th fret on the metal while swinging the thumb through the string, but hey, nobody said this kind of thing was supposed to be easy. Once you feel you're comfortable making a nice, pleasant harmonic on the big E string, make your way across the 12th fret on each string. You may find a tiny bit of the corner of your fingernail may help in bringing out the harmonic, or you can use a thumb pick. Once you feel comfortable creating the harmonic consistently with your index finger and thumb, it's time to move on to step 2. Step 2, that awkward skipped string pluck. Now that you've contorted your hand to make a one-handed harmonic, and are now well on your way to shadow puppeteering professionally, it's time to do that thing that used to be easy, but now suddenly isn't. Pluck a string. While your index and thumb are doing its thing, you need to be able to strike a string 2 strings over. I find this easiest to do with my ring finger. So if you're making a harmonic on the big E string, you'll need to follow it up with a strike on the D string. If you're making a harmonic on the A string, do a regular strike on the G string. In practice though, we will need to be able to reverse that order, striking with the ring finger and then following up with the harmonic. You can also try playing them simultaneously. This is all easier said than done, as your index finger might lose the light touch on the 12th fret while the thumb plucks hard enough to make a sound that balances the strike of the ring finger. You may consider striking the string less powerfully with the ring finger at first, giving the harmonic string a fighting chance at making a similar volume. Once you can do this with the E and D strings, try moving to the A and G, the D and B, and the G and little e strings. Doing this all in a seamless motion is what we'll call step 3. Step 3. Tracking with the claw. When we want to cascade from low notes to high, starting from the thickest strings, we lead with the ring finger on the D string. We pluck the harmonic on the big E string. Then, moving our entire claw hand 1 string thinner, we reach out and pluck the G string with our ring finger and follow up with a harmonic on the A string. This movement from one pair of strings to the other positionally with the arm and shoulder is known as string tracking. When we move from one pair of strings to the other, we use a hybrid movement coming from the wrist, the elbow, and most importantly for learning this technique, the shoulder. If you're having a lot of difficulty switching from one pair of strings to the other smoothly, chances are you might be using more elbow movement than shoulder, causing your arm to move in kind of an arc motion. This subtle arc is useful in many styles of guitar playing and picking, but when we're making our Cascade harmonics, we are somewhat limited by having to follow along the metal with our picking hand's index finger. Going to the thinner strings by primarily extending the elbow will subtly cause your hand to lose its index finger's position over the metal fret. Using a little bit of shoulder flexion will help you maintain that position. Now, descending uses the same string tracking principles, however, you will lead with the harmonic string, following up with a ring finger plucked string, and then moving on to 1 string thicker. So, starting this in the highest pitched parts and moving down, you'll need to make a harmonic on the G string, pluck the small E string with your ring finger, then use string tracking to set yourself up for a harmonic on the D string just before plucking the B string with your ring finger. You can continue this motion all the way down to the big E and D strings. Now, you don't always have to start with the harmonic when you descend, or conversely, the ring finger string when you ascend. These rules can be broken. Still though, we'll talk about the importance of that rule later in step 5. But first, step 4. Chords, artificial harmonics, and the dreaded fret tracking. By now I'm sure you've gotten tired of the 12th fret and that same E minor 11 remove 9 chord. So let's play guitar using both our hands. Crazy, right? Remember forever ago when we talked about overtones? Well, when you want to start playing with your left hand on the various frets that make up all our favorite chords, you change the location of that first overtone. For every fret I pass, starting at the open string, I push that harmonic 1 fret higher. If I press on the first fret of the big E string, I'll have to move my right hand's index finger to 1 fret higher than the 12th. So, the 13th fret. These harmonics that don't utilize open strings and that require the right hand to lightly touch the string and pluck behind it are called artificial harmonics. If you're looking for an easy way to make them, you can just take whatever fret you're touching and add 12 to it, and that's where you'll create the harmonic. When we do this with chords, we have to trace with our right hand the shape of the chord itself, with regards to the string that the harmonic is being made on. This is known as fret tracking. Make an E minor chord. The E string is open, the A and the D strings are on the 2nd fret, and the G, B, and little E strings are open. If we plus 12 each of these frets, starting at the thickest string, we will get 12, 14, 14, 12, 12, 12. If we position our right hand into the harmonic making position, we'll find that not only will we string track, we also must trace these higher frets with our index finger. This can get somewhat complicated mechanically, especially when adding in the full cascading right hand that uses the plucking ring finger. Just remember, the index finger in the right hand traces what the left hand is doing, including its open strings, 12 frets higher for each string. Try this switching between an E major and E minor chord. Notice how that 1 fret difference on the G string makes tracing it feel noticeably different. You can do this with all your open chords, but be sure to know whether to start on the big E string, the A string, or the D string, depending on what open chord shape you choose. Since the E and G chords use all 6 strings, I recommend starting there. You can start by making artificial harmonics across all 6 strings, but be sure to use the cascading technique once you feel comfortable, employing the ring finger to jump in alongside the index and thumb, creating its harmonic. You can do the ascending pattern, the descending pattern, or just play them simultaneously, moving up or down the chord. Once you have a few open chords down comfortably, you can use this on bar chords or really anywhere on the neck. But to get the most out of this, you'll need to use some jazzier chords. Step 5. Why jazz chords? In Chet Atkins' version of When You Wish Upon a Star, the cascading effect sounds like plucking a harp, or like lightly playing a scale on the piano with your foot down on the sustain pedal. He achieves this effect because of the chord he's making in the left hand. When using the cascading ascending pattern, the ring finger plucks its note, while the harmonic, despite being on a thicker string, creates a note 1 step higher in pitch than the ring fingers. Take this scale for example. It contains all the notes that the cascading harmonics with the chord used. However, it lacks the overlapping sustain that only comes from using the cascade technique. Were we to use this with a 6-string major bar chord, the ring finger's plucked note would be doubled with the harmonic. Moving to the next 2 strings would make the 3rd and the 5th of the major chord. The next 2 strings would be a 5th and its octave above, and in the last pair of strings, you would be playing an octave and its 3rd above. It's still a nice sound, but it doesn't give us the effect of moving up and down evenly. When we use chord shapes like this A minor 11, you'll find that the ascending cascade pattern walks up through an A minor pentatonic scale until you get to the last 2 strings, in which it goes to scale degree 9 and the flat 3rd. Notice the pattern. Flat 7, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 9, and flat 3rd. This is also a very easy pattern to fret track. Try moving this shape in the ascending and descending pattern. If you want, go ahead and try changing directions, or play each pair simultaneously. There are many other chord shapes that this works great with. Just look for shapes that include 4 to 6 strings and that don't double up on any of the chord tones. Step 6. Icing on the cake. In Chet Atkins' version of When You Wish Upon a Star, he does the cascade effect on the 4 thinnest strings using this shape and adding one more technique to this, a pull-off. As if it needed to get any more complicated, adding a pull-off between the harmonic and the ring finger plucked string is a common addition to this cascade motion that can really fill out the descending scale feeling. Chet often does this in triplet fashion, repeating the descent from the G and little E strings to the D and B strings and back again. It sounds great and can really build in dynamic intensity. It's most often used on the 4 thinnest strings. Another common technique to add is the artificial harmonic follow-through when doing the ascending pattern. When ascending, after doing the ring finger harmonic move on the E and D, A and G, D and B, and G and E strings, the only way to continue ascending in this position easily is to grab the last 2 strings with individual artificial harmonics. Just follow through on that B and little E string with artificial harmonics, and you'll have spanned a pretty impressive range of notes from bottom to top. To do this descending, you'll just need to start with the little E and then B strings with artificial harmonics prior to doing the descending pattern. One last little final trick to add to really complete the full cascade run is especially subtle, and that is a sneaky little 2-string pluck before you start the ascending cascade. This can be really difficult since it gives you a very small window to go from plucking the string normally with your index finger to getting it into position to create the harmonic. To do it smoothly takes work. The final product, though, is worth it. Here is a B minor 11 shape, starting with that sneaky 2-string pluck into the ascending Cascade. As I approach the top, I change direction and add a pull-off triplet loop on the 4 thinnest strings, only to come back down to the bottom of the Cascade. The overall effect is pretty impressive sounding. And bonus! One of my favorite additions to this technique is to create an artificial harmonic with the index finger and the pinky doing the thumb's job. I don't see this move done too often, and it makes sense. You could easily just keep using the index and thumb. However, I find the timbre different and especially pleasing on the thinner strings with this pinky approach. So that's it. It's a little-known technique that takes a lot of work, but yields a sensitive yet virtuosic sound. If you have any questions or success stories learning or using it, just let me know in the comments. I'll leave you with a short piece inspired by this technique. Hopefully you'll find ways of weaving this into your own compositions as well. Thanks for joining me on this first, yet incredibly niche, episode of Aaron Keene's Music Lessons.
Sound of rain drowns